You've probably noticed that feeling when someone asks you, how are you? How are you feeling? And if you were going to be honest, you would say, nothing. I feel nothing. The numbness starts to scare you maybe. And maybe you or others, maybe through subtle messages, have been saying that's wrong. You're cold, you're apathetic, you just don't care. The truth is, what if this numbness is a way for you to survive the overwhelm of emotion that you're experiencing from others, as well as unprocessed emotions for yourself? Whew. So that's what we're here to talk about today. If you've been feeling disconnected, maybe even labeling it as dissociation, then I'm going to invite you to maybe start to see the numbness as a very intelligent emotion. And it's a response that your body is talking to you through. And we're going to start to listen to that today. Welcome to Heart Mind with Holly. I'm so glad you're here. I'm so glad you've made it. I have my cuppa. Maybe grab yours too. And let's talk about starting to bring our prana home. By the end of this episode, you're going to start to understand numbness more through the lenses and intersections of Western science, Ayurveda, traditional Chinese medicine. We're going to go into the earth meridians today, and also yoga therapy and how yoga starts to see this. And they all agree on this, that the numbness isn't a lack of feeling, it's actually feeling too much for too long from too many sources. And the body's intelligence is starting to turn that volume down or even shut it out. Let's take a deep breath. And this is not because you're broken. This is because you're so damn intelligent. And this is where it gets really beautiful, and I've seen it time and time again. Once we start to truly shut that down and turn that down and find those avenues to do that consciously, then we can let the emotions slowly back in and start to identify our unique emotions. You start to feel your way back into yourself, but not by pushing, not by demanding, and not by forcing, but by gently starting to listen to the language your body has speaking to you with this whole time. With neuroscience, we always talk about the nervous system, and we're going to do a little bit again still today. So there are 3 ways that the nervous system can respond, and maybe you've only really been looking at 2. The sympathetic, where we're in flight, fight, but also doership mode. And then the parasympathetic, where we're in rest and digest. This is your autonomic nervous system. It has those 2 parts, but there's a 3rd one, the dorsal vagal activation. And this is where we start to shut down, but we're still awake. We start to maybe scroll without remembering. We come into that numbness where we are very actively receiving, but we're not really feeling or responding. Where we're on the couch, we're unable to get up, and we're tuning out. We're not able to take anything in. What happens is we're running on that sympathetic nervous system, and the vagus nerve is really switched on, and in that activation of fight, flight, doership, do, and it's run usually by some false beliefs and limited beliefs of I'm not enough, I can't do enough, how do I survive, or how do I get love? And I'll do whatever I need to get that done, and I'm going to do it in the most productive, efficient manner that I can. Let me see how I can do that. And there's some beautiful even videos of women demonstrating that. And it's that to-do list and managing that to-do list in the most efficient or best way possible. And there's a point in which that tires out and the system says, okay, that isn't quite working. It's not, I'm not enough still. And I am freaking tired. And so this is when that dorsal activation starts to switch on and say, okay, that didn't work. Now we just need to just completely shut out. But it's not the parasympathetic. It's not a restful, it's not a nourishing state for your system. It's still slightly activated, it's shut down, it won't let anything out or in. It's like pulling an emergency brake and the heart rate slows down, the muscles stop working, they totally go slack, emotions go numb and quiet. And it's not because you chose to stop feeling, it's because your body, your mind simply has had enough. And for anyone that grew up in a dangerous home or a home where your feelings were not valued and or just inconvenient, your experiences were not seen or heard, then this is going to be a normal way of coping. I can't let them out. And so I'm going to stuff them in. And that's where we start to become numb and overwhelmed. And the tragic part is this is happening before we even get to know ourselves. And that's the feeling of not really knowing who we are. Ayurveda has been talking about this for a very long time. This is a vata imbalance where we start to become very scattered in our nervous system and we start to do the scrolling especially or ways of distracting our nervous system so that it doesn't reside within us. And we get what Gabor Mate is calling the scattered mind and that trauma response. The spirit starts to contract back in itself. And I see this with clients. We find it. Just yesterday, I was working with a client that found where she was hiding herself when she was young. And it was right in her body, in her sacrum. And it was the essence of that just experience or emotions or that sense of self. And what Ayurveda is saying specifically is that when we're in that chronic state of that numbness, it starts to dry out the pathways for emotions. That's the vata imbalance. There's too much vata, which is air, which dries out these channels for emotions. And so what we do to bring it back, which I've talked about a lot, but I'm going to keep talking about because we need it, is nourishment and really lubricated nourishment, like the oil self-massage or get a massage, or nourishing teas, or nourishing really beautiful fats, really rich fats like the avocado, or really pure and rich oils, the ghee. And this is, again, really clean, clarified butter. But this is why it's used so much, is to lubricate and to nourish those lines. The water and the fluid, both physical in the lymph and in the blood, stops kind of flowing. Circulation stops. And so again, all of these things, both the massage and the receiving of these, will start to carry the fluids and move them with that sense of fluidity. So the fluids are still there. The structure is still there, but the channels are needing lubrication to carry those and to circulate them. And you can tell this is where self-abandonment becomes physical and we start to create disease, stagnation. And Ayurveda never separates the body and the mind. If you're feeling numb, your tissues are probably asking for some warmth. If you're feeling stagnant, they're needing some movement. This is when daily self-love or care is not a luxury. It really is medicine. In the ancient books of Ayurveda, it says the definition of health, it starts to list physical, physiological things. But maybe the most important, especially in the intersection of yoga and Ayurveda, is that one is established in themselves. That means that their prana is in their bodies and they're secure in themselves. And it's absolutely needed for health and well-being. Before we go to TCM, traditional Chinese medicine and yoga therapy, let's take a moment for just a little check-in and practice of this. So I'm going to invite you to take your left hand to your heart and your right hand to your gut, to your belly. And then close your eyes or soften the gaze if that doesn't feel right. And if this isn't the right time to do practice, come back to it when you're ready. It's very short. Ground your feet. And I know some people can bypass that one. Even I can be like, oh, that doesn't matter. But it does. And what you are saying when you ground into your feet is that I matter. I'm here on this earth and I matter. So plant your feet. Maybe you're in a seated posture. So plant your sits bones and feel your legs on the ground if you're more towards the earth. And take a couple of sweet, deep breaths. And feel your rib cage and feel your heart respond to the breath. And then focus a little more on the exhale. And that can go through the mouth or the nose for now. And there's a warmth to the exhale. Maybe see if you can feel into that temperature, just a little bit more warming as it comes out of your warm lungs. It comes out warm through the nostrils. Feeling into your own internal warmth. And then I'm just going to invite you to press into your hands a little bit more, into your gut and into your heart a little more. Create a little pressure. And so you kind of feel those, like you press your feet into the earth, you're pressing into your own physical body and asking yourself just what's on your heart. What is your heart holding? And it might not come to you in words. It might come in a flutter, in an image, a shape, or a color. It might come to you in a sensation. And then releasing that gently, bringing your hands together, rub your hands together, and that creates that warmth. And then you'll take your hands to your eyes so that when you wake up or you come out of that internal process, you're opening your eyes to warmth. And these are small ways that you can start to create that warmth for yourself. And that anointment of love, I want to know what's on your heart. I'm going to take this moment. If this practice, very small, has supported you, and so far the episode has supported you, please share or comment below, and I'd love to hear how the practice went. Let's go into the spleen and into the stomach. So the spleen and the stomach are the earth meridians in Chinese medicine and in meridian theory, where we use that in yoga. And what it says is that the stomach is receiving the nourishment and helping that first step of digestion. And that first step, really, there is some breaking down, but it's really a holding station, a receiving station for those that substance and that nourishment. And then the spleen is digesting thought and experiences. And it's that first step of digesting thought. And I'm holding my left side, that stomach, that spleen. And so what really affects the spleen and starts to weaken or create stagnation in that meridian is going to be worry, overthinking, too pensive. The thoughts get gummed up and start to create stagnation. And so when that happens, there's a heaviness in the body and heaviness in your mind. There's a heaviness and a fogginess. And it's almost like you're trying to look through glass or you're trying to look through your life, but it's really, really difficult, really opaque. You can feel like you're moving through concrete or you're moving through that sludge, which I hear often from clients. So when trauma starts to overwhelm, we become a little bit maybe forgetful or just it's hard to process thoughts. And then the stomach gets also gummed up because they are in deep relationship with each other. And then you're unable to receive the nourishment. Even if you're overwhelming it with a lot of food, there's a lack of being able to receive so much. And it's not really receiving and able to disseminate the nutrients. Or maybe you don't eat enough. And this can be both literal food, but also experiences. You're not really able to receive new experiences. And so you're just kind of walking through, not getting anything back from life. And here's the fun part. The remedy to this is very similar to Ayurveda, warmth. Cooked food, really warm, nourishing soups, really warm and nourishing, even desserts that are rich with natural sugars. For example, I know with Ayurveda, a stewed apple with some ghee or some really, really rich and clean oil. The other thing that people resist a lot is really simplifying and creating routines for themselves that's self-love and simplifying their day. Because if you're trying to eat 3 meals and you're trying to process everything that is demanded of you in your workspace and you're trying to process grief, it's just too much to digest. So creating small little touch points in your morning or your evening or maybe in your lunchtime to start to process and digest as well as receive. You just need one warm thing and to fully be present with it for a very small amount of time, and it'll go a long way. Now, the last thing I want to talk about is the yoga. And what we're doing with the yoga therapy is, so you've been scattered and there's been too much, and all of your energy is going out and nothing's able to come in, and there's too much in there. And so what we're trying to do is clear old patterns, old thoughts, old ways, old trauma, and then receive and bring in the new prana, new beliefs, and value what you have experienced. It's like when you see birds scatter from a tree and they've left their nests. That's kind of the constant state that we might be in. And then we start to come slowly, releasing the fear of what startled us out and come back home to the nest gently. And we do that by bringing more energy, more prana to those pathways I was talking about, those channels. And we call those in yoga chakras and nadis. And we're repopulating and reclaiming the chakras structure and then moving, flowing the prana there. And so by using the body movements, again, you're naturally going to start to warm. We start dynamically, and it can be really gentle and simple, but any movement where you're dynamically bringing your mind more to the core, contracting and expanding, you're going to start to warm your body. And with the contraction, you're releasing the old. And with the inhale, you're expanding into the new. And so when you bring your mind consciously there, you're going to be doing that through the body. You don't have to even think about it too much, but you have to focus. And what usually helps is someone helping you to keep that prana focused on the contraction naturally available to you and the expansion naturally available to you. And that can be lower in the core, and that could be a little higher in the core. That could be a little more in the throat. It could be anywhere along your central axis. This is what asana is really about. It's not just flexibility for flexibility's sake. It's finding more flexibility so that you can meet it in your day, in your thoughts, in your mind. And it's not about forcing yourself to feel. It's about allowing the feelings to come to you over time through the natural movement of your body, and then repopulating those chakras, rehousing them. First, you got to claim them as yours and then bring the prana home. That is the biggest thing that's happening with trauma, is that we are rendered homeless and we have to bring our prana. It's our responsibility. And I know it's difficult, but it is our responsibility to start to bring that prana home. You didn't stop feeling because you're broken, I promise. And I know it feels like it. I wrote a whole thesis about being broken. You stopped feeling because somewhere along the way, feeling became too much and too dangerous. And your body in its infinite intelligence shut down, withdrew, and helped you survive. Surviving isn't the same as living. And so there's something in you that has watched this and needed this, that has needed to start feeling again. Not all at once, not by force, but by gently starting to listen to the language of the body. This is the work. And I am so glad you're here doing it with me. I am on that journey too. If this has spoke to you, please subscribe if you're not already. Hit that notification button. I'm going to have these talks, and I'm going to have also practices, and I'm coming back to interviews and interviewing other somatic therapists and healers, doctors around this somatic healing. If there's someone else that you know that really needs to hear these words or experience this practice, please share it with them. Sometimes the greatest gifts can be these small shares that can open doorways and possibilities for others. Travel well, enjoy your yoga, enjoy your prana, and I'll see you next time.